I really wish I could just be blindly excited for everything. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the Defenders and specifically why I'm kind of nervous for it. Because this was something that set on gradually for me and I couldn't figure out initially why I was feeling this way, and I've analyzed it. I think I've got it figured out now. So, quick recap, The Defenders is basically to the Marvel Netflix shows what the Avengers was to the Marvel theatrically released movies. It is the team-up show. It is going to feature Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist all together taking on we don't know exactly what, but it's their big team-up event. And it's something that I had been looking forward to. I mean, why wouldn't I? I like all the vast majority of Marvel's output immensely. Now I'm nervous about it, and the initial blame for that is going to land at the feet of Iron Fist, and not just for the obvious reason. Now, to recap, Iron Fist, the show, was not good. Iron Fist, Danny Rand, the character, was really not good. I really could not stand this character, and I don't think I was alone in that assessment. So that gives the initial obvious concern, which is that, I'm stuck with this guy. That isn't really where my fear is coming from, because, I mean, he's gonna get balanced out by other characters and all this stuff. So I had to think, why is this actually making me nervous? Because before Iron Fist even came out, but the initial critical word was out and it wasn't good, I sort of posited the question, you know, what if it sucks? What does that mean? And I said at the time that I don't think it's going to matter much, because Marvel as an entity, as an entertainment producing machine, is just going to keep grinding forward. And this isn't going to slow the momentum. I'm not entirely sure that's true now. And this isn't because like Iron Fist is so bad it's going to drag the whole thing down. No, it's nothing like that. It has to do with the fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though we referred to it as this one big thing, it's not really. It may have intended to be at one point, and I know technically everything is happening within the same continuity, but in reality, we are dealing with three different universes for all intents and purposes. We have the films, we have Netflix, and we have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which will also soon incorporate the Inhumans as well. I don't know where Cloak and Dagger fits on all this. That might be something else. Now, the reason I'm dividing these up is because, again, even though technically they happen in the same universes, and we've had some Easter eggs and some confirmations of that connection, they're not gonna cross over in any huge meaningful way, and they kind of never did. The only time one massively impacted the other was the events of Winter Soldier impacting Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That was really the only time it happened, and it hasn't happened since. The reason for that is because Kevin Feige, who runs the movies, and Ike Perlmutter, who runs the television division, Feige used to answer to Perlmutter. The two do not get along at all, and Feige went over his head to Disney saying, I can't keep answering to this guy, and they basically split the two apart, and now they work separately. They're not gonna start working together on this stuff. Now, theoretically, that kind of logistical hurdle doesn't exist between, say, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Netflix shows, but those aren't gonna cross over for a much more basic reason. They are aiming for a completely different sort of demographic and type of entertainment. I mean, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is on ABC. It is aiming for a family audience. Netflix, not so much. It's much harsher. And when you mix what is effectively a PG-13 property with an R property, you're going to either make the R property look soft, or you're going to be bringing people over from the PG-13 who aren't ready for the R stuff. Though that stuff's not going to cross over either. So once we look at the fact that we call it the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but we've got the movies, we've got Netflix, we've got standard TV, and we look at just Netflix because that's what Iron Fist is going to impact, and we realize the Netflix isn't quite at the same point. So like, if Marvel produces a flat-out bad movie, which again, I've said this before, I don't think they have as yet. I think the worst that the movies have been is disposable, and some of their films have been, but I've never regretted watching any of their films. But even if something comes out, if say, for instance, I don't know, Black Panther is awful and painful, the movies have so much momentum and so much history behind them, and you know, proof of concept with so much stuff, that's just gonna plow right through. That's not where the Netflix shows are right now. So Iron Fist sucking which again, it does a lot, is not the same as, again, you know, something like Black Panther or Spider-Man Homecoming or even the next Avengers movie sucking. It's more like, what if Captain America the First Avenger had sucked? What if people didn't like it? What if people didn't like Chris Evans as Steve Rogers? We would have been in potentially really big trouble going into the Avengers, because he is a part of that, and they were already in production for that when the Captain America film came out. And we were in the same boat with the Defenders already being in production when Iron Fist came out. So the situation we've got with Netflix isn't really analogous to anything that could happen with the movies, because the movies are already blown past that point, the sort of point in its own evolution that the Netflix shows are in right now. But that's not the only problem. The other problem is, what's the threat gonna be? What's the story gonna be? Because right now, the obvious indication, and if you remember the teaser, you know, with sort of the images peeling away, what was left with the word Defenders on it? It was a hand. The Hand is not good villain material, and if that's going to be the main thrust of what the Defenders are facing, that's not a good sign. And it's not just because, you know, they're lacking a figurehead, though that's part of the problem. I'll touch back on that again in a minute. But the big problem with the Hand is they're far too nebulous. It's not clear exactly what their mission statement is, what they are after. You know, even the exact hows and whys of how they operate are still just too vague. It makes them kind of unthreatening. We don't know enough about them to be properly threatened, particularly since we've seen them get their butts handed to them repeatedly. You compare that to, say, Hydra. Hydra has worked as a villain. First of all, right off the bat, they spun off from the Nazis. Oh, well, we all grabbed that right away, but it's also had appropriate figureheads. It had Red Skull, and then when it got over onto Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it had Bill Paxton's character, whose name I forget. It had that scientist who didn't appear to be aging. It had Ward. I mean, Ward is so much more interesting as a villain than anything that has ever come out of the Hand. Now, we may be getting a reprieve with that because Sigourney Weaver is going to be playing the villain. Exactly who she is, who she's commanding, how she fits into things, we don't know yet. But Sigourney Weaver is a great presence and a great get, and hopefully whoever the villain is, she's going to be able to pull it together. But I don't know if that's going to be enough, because I look at all the threads that are left to be picked up by the other shows, and it's the Hand, it's the sort of hints to Jessica Jones' origins, it's maybe some of the stuff with the experimentation that created Luke Cage initially. It's frankly the least interesting stuff of each of these series, and to try and take all the worst bits and try and build the team up around that, you know what, it's not even like having Iron Fist suck and the pieces that they appear to be making the Defenders out of. Just saying that Iron Fist sucked would have been like if the Captain America the First Avenger sucked. No. Because also, since the Hand sucked so bad, imagine if we were going into the first Avengers movie and Captain America the First Avenger had sucked and Loki sucked. That's where we are right now in terms of the pieces that they're being assembled. Now, does that mean that it can't be good? No, of course not. It could still be good. It could still be great. But they're building this thing out of faulty parts, and that makes me nervous. And if it was just Danny Rand, I probably wouldn't be as nervous. Knowing the Hand, that's another thing. And also, you know, I kind of implied that Danny Rand might get canceled out by the other three. I'm not sure that's going to be true either, because they're all kind of similar in terms of where they are as a persona, as a person. And I don't mean, these are not identical characters. I'm not saying that, but I mean, they're all dour, angsty, kind of, you know, in the dumps characters as general personality. I think the lightest guy is probably Luke Cage, and he's an ex-convict with a dead wife, so he can be kind of morose sometimes. So when you've got all of these when they've all got downer personalities, I don't know how that's going to balance as a team. I mean, to contrast with the movies and with the Avengers, yeah, you've got some folks who are a little more down in the dumps. You know, you've got Bruce Banner, who's a little bit, but then you've got, you know, Captain America, who's very stalwart and noble, and then you've got Iron Man, who is just having fun with all the, you know, you have distinctly different personalities. You can see how they play off each other. I look at the characters in the various Netflix shows, and even though I have enjoyed 3 out of 4 of the Netflix shows. I think about the basic operating premise of the personalities of these characters, and they're all a little too similar. Like, between the guy who is bummed out out of Catholic guilt, the woman who is still getting over severe trauma, the guy who was wrongly convicted and found out that his new girlfriend killed his old wife, and the entitled douchebag. Who's the comic relief in this? Who's you know, the one who's gonna be peppy, who's gonna, you know, and I'm not saying that, you know, we must have comic, I'm just saying, like, these are all sort of characters, and, you know, in their own shows it works because they have their own supporting cast to buoy them a bit more. You know, Daredevil has Foggy, and that helps a great deal. Luke Cage had a number of characters. He had that other guy in the barbershop whose name is suddenly escaping me. I loved him. Jessica Jones had her friend, and Danny Rand, well, Danny Rand didn't have anybody, but again, that show sucked. But, you know, if they're all with each other, and they might even bring some of their supporting cast along for the ride, but they're going to be even more background than they are in the normal shows. So I don't see how this is going to balance. And again, you know, it could still work, and I would like it to work, and I'm certainly going to watch it. But the more I think about the pieces and the components that are being fit together to make this new show, the more it makes me kind of go, please don't suck! Because I've now seen what happens when a Marvel Netflix show sucks. And I don't want to slog through another season of crap. Because Iron Fist, not again. No. So that is why I am currently concerned. I'm still gonna see it. I mean, Marvel has built up more than enough, you know, goodwill with me. It's gonna be a while. They're gonna need a long string of really bad decisions before I hit, you know, the point I'm at with DC, where they, you know, I'm not giving them my money anymore. So I'm nowhere near that, but I'm nervous, and I haven't been nervous for a Marvel property in ever. Like, ever. I don't think I've ever been this nervous about a Marvel property. Even knowing the reviews going into Iron Fist, I wasn't this nervous. So, yeah, that's where I am on this. What are your thoughts about the Defenders? What are your hopes for it? What are your concerns about it? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check me out on Twitter at Council of Geeks. Give a listen to the Council of Geeks podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher. And also, check out my other podcast, Punch Like a Girl. It's on a separate podcast feed. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, this council is adjourned.